what a module,
Uh-huh.
but I'm kind of guessing like based on the question below it that it's a way for us to like have a parent that we can access like different things of the same thing, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of had to look at the second question to like figure out where we were going.
Huh? That's fine. And like I think that um like when I say the word module, like the word that comes to mind is modular, right? And so by looking at these questions and kind of like what we've talked about briefly is that, last week we talked about using inheritance to kind of like have different things share code. And what we're going to do today is we're going to look at modules, and modules are simply a different way to do that. Excuse me. Cool. So one thing I want to note is that today we've budgeted more time than I think we'll actually need. So if we just finish early today, we'll just roll right into kicking off the project. Then you'll just have the entire afternoon to do your project things with your new best friends. All right. So modules, and I'll share these notes when we're done. They do a couple of things in Ruby. Today, we are only going to concentrate on them being used as mixins. Right? And so that leads to questions like, what's a mixin? They allow us to share behavior between objects. Nope, that I meant to say out the not a rising. What's the opposite of rising? Lowering tone. Yeah. Objects. And so I think that like the mixin is kind of like the big word, and Ruby does mixins by using modules. Ruby does mixins with modules. Lowercase m. Fair enough. Right. So let's talk about modules. Important things about modules. Boom. One, they look like classes. But they only hold methods. So, Weston, what defines a class? What does a class have that makes it a class? Two things.
Yeah, it has behaviors and attributes.
Yep.
So methods and instance variables is the way I think about it.
Yeah, that's great. And so like the example right here that we'll kind of talk off the bat is that they look like classes, they hold methods. So that means that modules, as we said before, up above, they allow us to share behaviors and that just between objects, right? And so they only hold behaviors. They don't hold any sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Attributes, right? So only store behavior. Do not store state. You also do not instantiate them. And when we say instantiate them, when we instantiate a new instance of a class, use the .new method, right? We don't do that with modules. We're going to go into that in a little bit. Fantastic. Any questions so far about modules? Cool. All right. Let me just move my windows around. And so what we're going to do is that there's in the lesson plan, there's a link to this repo. You can close this down later, but we just have 2 bits of code here. We have a photo class and a status update class. And so we're just going to look at the status update and like, excuse me. in a status update, we can kind of imagine this. We can imagine this working the same way that Facebook works, right? Someone posts a status update and then people comment on it, right? So we create a new status update. You have the body of it, which is kind of like the text of the status update, and we have the comments, and we have this text called we have a text called display that'll just display what displays the status update and then all the comments. And what we're doing is at add comment, we're storing the comments in this hash where the key is going to be an ID number that we give it, and the value is going to be whatever that comment is. We have this kind of like system here that will auto increment and like generate ID numbers for comments. So that's not kind of like too important about it. So let's open up a pry session here. Nope, we don't do that in the terminal. Just plain old pry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to require status update.rb. Cool. I'm just going to copy this from the lesson plan, so I don't have to type as much and embarrass myself by typing as much. So essentially, we're creating a new status called status update.new. I'm learning about models and Ruby's hashtag, no big deal, right? And so we can do things like, we hit status like so. We see that's the object. We see here that inside comments is just this empty hash. We use status.display. And then the display method, as we've seen up here, it makes this nice friendly, like, hey, status update, cool. And I am going to copy and paste myself adding a bunch of comments in here. Like, oh, cool. Just blah, blah, blah. Just you wait, et cetera, et cetera. And we do status. And we see here that this body remains the same. Now we've got some comments. It looks like they have the keys are these ID numbers that we've kind of auto-generated and incremented. And I'm going to do status.display. And we see this very fancy kind of like, hey, status update body. And we have these 4 different comments. And like, oh no, I don't like this. I don't like this shit poster here. I'm gonna status.remove comment 3. This is I deleted at it. I'm going to do status.display. And we see there's just the 3 comments left. Cool. Any questions about how this kind of like little status update social media thing, this object works? Cool. Fantastic. All right, so we have that. What we're going to do is that we're going to play with this photo class, and we'll see that a lot of this is very similar to the status update. We can think like this is like Instagram. Someone posts an image, there's a caption, there's some comments. Cool. A lot of this is the same. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to require /photo.rb. That's true. I'm just going to copy this from plan. Cool. And it's created myself a new photo. And if you are curious as to what photo it is, I'm going to, that's what the photo is. The O is because that looked, I'm a little hungry right now, and that looks absolutely delicious. No syrup though. I don't see any syrup or butter. Also, now I think about it, who puts orange slices on top of pancakes? That seems weird to me, but that is the photo. And so we're going to do photo.display. And we see here that we have a very similar thing. Now we have a photo, URL, caption. What we're going to do is that we're going to add some comments. These are just people saying, looks delicious. Will you cook for me? Brunch next Sunday, blah, blah, blah. Photo.display. And we see here that we have the same kind of thing. We have this, all the basic kind of like raw data, the raw attributes of this photo, followed by these comments that were added. And we're going to do photo.remove comment one. Nope, I gotta spell that right. Photo.remove comment one. And we do photo.display. And we see that we're missing the thing. So I'm just gonna pick someone out. Rowan, what's similar but different between these two classes that we kind of looked at here?
They both have the same like method names, but they do slightly different things.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Can you give me an example of some things that they do very similarly?
The display, they display things in a similar way, just some of the text is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. What else do we have here that's similar? What other behavior is similar?
I'm not sure.
Kelsey, what else?
It allows people to make comments on there.
Yep.
The status would be like similar to the
We look at the add comment.
caption.
Yep. Yeah, and like the comments, like essentially the same kind of thing, right? We're allowing people to comment. The remove comment is kind of similar, right? So with the way these two classes are kind of broken out, what design principle are we kind of breaking here? JJ?
We're repeating ourselves.
I'm sorry?
We're repeating ourselves.
One more time?
Dry. Do not repeat
What?
yourself.
One more time?
Dry. Do not repeat yourself.
I just keep going until I see how many.
Oh my God, I fell for it. God damn it.
I always want to see how many times I can get. I think my record's like 6. But yeah, like the thing, like the big picture is that we're repeating ourselves over and over again. And we kind of we don't want to do that. So the technique that we're going to be using here is we're going to use modules. And in particular, we're going to use mixins. And again, like I said before, Ruby is the tool with which we implement mixins. And what we're going to do is that we are going to extract this duplication into a module, which we then will build into each class. Like when we think about how we did something very similar with inheritance, we can think of like, hey, we create some kind of parent class, like social media post that these two inherit from. This is what we're going to do today, is that we are going to extract the duplication into a module. And so usually the Ruby convention is that we name these modules ending with the suffix able, -able. For example is that you've already been using a module, enumerables. That is a module that keeps all the numerables. And I don't know why. I don't like it, but we do it. It just feels weird. I would just rather name the module whatever it is. Like, it makes sense to me that way, but that is not what the convention is. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to touch a file called commentable.rb, and I want to put that over there, here. And so what we do is when we make a module, it's going to look like this: module commentable, and your code goes in here. I'm just going to do status update to start with, and then we'll do photo afterwards. And so the first thing we got to do is that we need to make sure. So if we're going to start pulling out behavior into this module, the stuff where we're pulling it out from needs to know what to do with, needs to know where it goes. So here, the first thing we need to do is that we need to require it, right? Commentable, yeah. Make sense? Like we want to have access to things in the file, we got to require it, right? That is just how it works. We can't. Very similar to like when you're writing tests. Like, well, if we think about your flashcards, right? Your card test, like, well, your required card, right? Because you need to access that file. We want to use the methods we're going to put into commentable. We got to require the file. Next, and this is a new thing, is that right under status update, we are going to put include commentable. So what this is saying is that, hey, Ruby, I know we're in status update, but you can go ahead, go find the commentable module, and you can use the methods in there. Cool. And then I'm going to photo. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the commentable there. And down here, I'm going to do, oh, no. Include commentable. Common table. I don't like the able, just words that end and that don't make sense in my head. And I don't know why. So we're going to say that there. Cool. Any questions so far? So I guess we should start pulling things out, huh? Yeah, sounds reasonable. So we know that the add comment, the comment stuff, nope. There. Right, that is the photo. Let's take a look at the status update. I just want to make sure I'm not doing anything wrong. The add comment, right? That gets moved over. The remove comment gets pulled over. The next comment ID gets pulled over, and the total comments gets pulled over. So that means because I've already pushed it, I've already kind of copy and pasted over there. We're going to take this and we're going to delete it. And I'm just going to clean this up. Make sure that looks good. I want to save my commentable. I'm going to pull a photo over here. Oops. And I'm just going to make sure that everything looks good. Save it. Fantastic. And so what I'm going to do is that we're going to load up Pry again. And I'm going to require both the status update and the photo RB. Oops. I did both. Fantastic. I'm going to recreate my status update. Right. Status, got that one. I'm going to add these two comments. Oh, cool, and then whoa. Right. And then we do status dot display. Right. And we can status dot remove comment one, status dot display, and that one still remains. I'm going to go ahead and make the photo. I'm going to add the comments. I'm going to do photo dot display. See that we have the two things. Photo dot remove comment two, just for ha-has. Photo dot display, and we see that it still works. All the functionality is still there when we pull things out into this commentable file. Blake?
Yeah, a couple questions.
Yeah.
So theoretically, before the module, when you had all these methods, you would have tested for it, right?
Yep.
Once you move it into a module and now it's under commentable, would you create like a commentable test spec, or?
I would test it through the status update test, in this example, status update test and photo test. right? Because we need to test it every single place your module is being used. You need to test it in that context.
And then my other question was, does it get, is where it gets stored? So you normally have like a lib and a spec, and then you have like lib class. Would you have like a lib modules and then all your modules within that modules lib, or do you put on the same level as your classes?
It depends. Like if I've just got the one module, I'll live the same level. But like, there's always this line. I feel like usually lib is where all your code goes, but at the same time, we don't want it to be like a kitchen sink. So like, there's some point where you're like, I really need to organize this a little better. That's when you organize it.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Like if you got like 4 classes and one module, I'm not going to take the time to make the,
Mhm.
and like, it's hard to like have a definitive, like, this is the line where we need to start, like moving things around. Right. So like, it's, if you want to start organizing from the beginning, you can. I just don't feel it's worth it until like a little later on. But again, it's kind of hard to have like the firm line. That, and like, when you think about it, right, if you think to yourself like, well, this is going to be like a huge project with a lot of modules down the road, I might just start organizing from the start. It's like, hey, I'm just going to do it now and then everything's fine. Or if I know that I'm only going to ever use one module, I just won't care. So like, it's a lot of it's by feel, like what you feel is right. Just don't let it become the kitchen drawer full of junk that you put batteries and stuff in.
Thanks.
Cool. All right. Any other questions? Caitlin?
So I know in the inheritance,
Uh-huh.
we kind of had our super class,
Yeah.
and then we kind of had the basic methods we wanted to use across everything that's going to inherit from it. Why would you use inheritance over the modules? I guess I don't really know what the difference is.
Yeah. Inheritance, I feel that inheritance works a lot better when you have a very formalized structure that is going to make it easier for people to understand. Right. So the example that we did with inheritance, it was like, hey, employees, like we have a very strict hierarchy, and like people who are, I think that most people going into that would kind of understand, like, yeah, I get it. A manager is a kind of thing. There's also potential for there being like multiple levels of kind of this hierarchy. And I think that inheritance would be my go-to tool when there is like a set kind of structure, and where that would be a tool that someone used to help someone understand like the kind of big picture, how things fit together. This is just like, when we think about it, is there like me saying that like there's a hierarchy of social media posts that status update and photo inherit from? That doesn't really, like, by definition, a photo is a social media post, a status update is a social media post, but that hierarchy is a lot more loose, and it doesn't really kind of always fit, right? And we can think about like this commentable module we've created. Potentially there could be other things that people could comment on that may not necessarily fit into this hierarchy. Like, what if comments now had comments, right? And like, that could be something we should do that for. One thing that a potential use of a module for is like in your upcoming project, when you're going to have to do some like kind of statistic stuff, right? Like a mathable module would probably make sense. And that's something that like doesn't feel like should be implemented with inheritance, right? Especially if we're doing like math on stuff. Right. So like that'd be the kind of like that's in my mind what the differences between the two.
Okay.
So we're trying to
Thank you.
layer down some kind of structure. Yeah. Rowan?
Are modules a Ruby thing, or do other languages have both inheritance and modules too?
Other languages have modules. They may call them something different. Also, other languages may not. Like, they are not exclusive to Ruby. I think that in this day and age, there are no major things that are like exclusive to a language. It like a lot of differences are elsewhere. Weston?
So with inheritance, we were able to redefine the default method or the inherited method within the class and like, modify it to some things if we wanted to. Can we do similar things with modules?
Dun, dun, dun. Let's look. I'm just gonna do this. Def add comment. Does this work? No, we're not doing that. No. She heard something outside the door and is growling. Let's do require. Just going to copy and paste that status update from before. Cool. Status equal, nope, status dot add comment. Let's see. Does not, right? And this does the same kind of thing. What we're doing is that we're kind of relying on the Ruby kind of object lookup chain. Where, sorry. What's happening here is that we run this add comment method on status, and it's going to hit this here first because this is the first place it looks. When we don't have this here, what it's going to do, like, okay, I don't have it in here. Where do I go through next? We go through commentable because we've included here, right? We're inserting something in the chain. Cool, good question. We get rid of this so we don't, so in case we do that later and it works. Laura?
So say you had like more in your classes, what kind of more methods and more like everything, just more extensive. What other types of modules might you have, and why not just put them all in like one module? If they're all sharing those like
organizational purposes.
Okay.
Right. If I had like we had a commentable, like the all like math stuff, I put in math in a mathable or something like that. Modules are also used to organize. Like you could potentially just like divvy up a class and just pull things out into a module just to keep things organized more. I don't really, not a huge fan of that because that says to me that like your class is way too big and should be split up in the first place. But that is like something you can do.
Thanks.
Yep. Cool. All right. Let's take a break and let's be back at 9:41. 9:41. All right. Let us continue. Import 10 things. Once a module is included in a class, any object created from that class can call the method in the module. And we've just demonstrated that, right? We've instantiated a photo and a status update instances of those classes, and we just used the methods to define the module as if they were a very part of the thing. I like to, like, what helps me kind of like remember like how modules work is essentially what's happening when you do in commentable, when you include commentable, like you essentially just copy this and you paste at the bottom, right? That's essentially what's happening. You have access to the things. And that's how in my mind I tell myself modules work. And that helps me simplify things up a bit. Next, many classes can include the same module. So we've seen here that both status update and photo are both including the commentable module. And finally, each class can include many modules, kind of like the flip side. If I, let's say that we were also doing some math stuff on the status update, I could just go include mathable, include otherable, include somethingable, you know, like I can include as many things as I want in this to kind of dry things out. But again, like I feel that there's a point where like you need to ask, like, what am I doing here? I'm like, this is doing way too many things. Cool. All right. So what we're going to do now is Matt.
I'm sure the answer to this is yes, if it's like, is this ever appropriate? But is it common to have both inheritance and modules working like together?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a thing you can, and we'll see. Yep, Brian.
Can you make a module inherit from another module? So include another module in it? Like, do you stack these like you would inheritance?
Let's try it. Looks reasonable, right? I don't think you can, because you're never instantiating a module. But let's try it out, because it might work, it might not work. We'll find out. Require photo. Oops. Photo to RB. Nope, it's not happy about it. So you cannot. That makes sense, because you can't. We're never instantiating it. Cool. Awesome. So what we're going to do is that we're going to give you some time to practice. And I'm going to break you up into groups, and we'll take 15 minutes to do this. Breakout rooms. All right, we'll take 15 minutes to do this, and we'll come back together and wrap up. Off you go.